Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk about the Browns quarterback situation moving forward.
This is Joe Flacco all over again. And Joe Flacco's final game as a starter was a disaster for the Browns. He threw multiple interceptions. They lost to the Texans in blowout fashion. But the theory that Sims and I have had all year long, Devin, is they didn't bring him back because they knew they couldn't bring him back, because if you bring him back week one, they're going to be chanting, "We want Flacco." The fans loved Flacco, and the fans are going to love Jameis. And I think you can get Jameis Winston at a fairly affordable price. And the 3 interceptions last night actually will help you. You're not going to have a land rush for Jameis Winston. There's not going to be a team out there that needs a quarterback that has in big, bold letters at the top of their list, "We need Jameis Winston." Cleveland needs Jameis Winston, and they need to turn the page from Deshaun Watson to Jameis Winston, and they can afford to pay Watson $46 million to not play, get Winston for a reasonable price, and make him the guy. And you're going to have moments like that. You're going to have pick sixes, but you're going to have excitement, and you're going to have fun, and you're going to be relevant. And most teams end up in prime time because they win. The Browns will be a draw next year because they have Jameis. And if you're not going to win the Super Bowl anyway, and only 1 out of 32 is going to, you might as well be fun. The Browns are fun. You want to build your fan base nationally? Be fun. The next best thing to be good is be fun.
Tom, I get what he's saying. I don't care if they're fun. I want them to win. And I think you can. Yeah. I think Kevin Stefanski is the kind of coach that can win with Jameis Winston. I think he can make it so that don't throw from the opposite hash to the far sideline, because these guys are really fast in the NFL.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Dave. And I think, listen, he's a 30-year-old quarterback. He is who he is, right? This has been his story since Florida State. He can look great 1 minute and not so great the next. But I'm with you. I think there's still some time to maybe mold him into the quarterback that he needs to be, maybe a little more conservative, maybe surround him with a couple more playmakers. I mean, I think it was a real bright last night that Jerry Jeudy shined like he did on that kind of stage. Elijah Moore had arguably his best game in 2 seasons with the Browns. There's still some issues with David Njoku, who I'm still not sure is 100% healthy. But yeah, I think Jameis Winston at the very least, and listen, I'm with you, Dave. It's not about being fun or exciting or playing on prime time. It's about winning games. I don't think Florio is really, reading the room very well in terms of what this Cleveland fan base has been through. We've seen fun, we've seen exciting, we've seen Johnny, we've seen Baker, we've seen everything in between, and it's time for this roster to win, because as we talked about, over the last 3 years, when you're wasting some of the prime years of Myles Garrett's career, the same could be said for Joel Bitonio, Denzel Ward, Nick Chubb, on down the line, some of the pillars and cornerstones that this team thinks it has on its roster. You don't want to go too much further down the road. So I'm with him as well, though. I think at least, if nothing else, Winston gives you a viable option going forward into 2025. We still think at this point that Deshaun Watson is going to be in the mix in some capacity. Personally, I would move on from him. I think that's probably a sentiment that's gaining some momentum in the building. However, you got that financial component of it with, do $92 million over the next 2 years. The salary cap hit is even beyond that. So I think if there's another thing to look at from last night, Dave, is that if the Browns wanted to see what that exit strategy could look like with a star quarterback, just look at the other sideline in the Denver Broncos, who were strapped with that Russell Wilson deal, weren't sure how they were going to get under it, decided just to swallow hard and eat about $50 million or so, and drafted Bo Nixon. And here they are early December in the playoff mix. I think the Browns would gladly trade for that scenario.
Yeah, and Tom, think back to it. The 3 guys they were going hard after were Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers. None of those worked out. None of them worked out. There's a lesson to be learned there.
There's a lot of lessons to be learned here. And unfortunately, the Browns have had to learn them the hard way over the years, right? With mistakes, whether they be in drafting or in free agency. So listen, I will say this as well. There's definitely been, much like last year with Joe Flacco, there's been an infusion of excitement through the building. And that's, in some ways, that's an indictment on Deshaun Watson and the fact that he was not the leader that the Browns thought he was going to be, never mind the quarterback on the field that they thought he was going to be. So, guys rally around Jameson. Jameis. And I agree with Florio from the standpoint that, he brings an exciting brand of football, but at the end of the day, everybody wants to see this team win and win soon.